I can able to generate electricity from the sunlight. So for that, I have chosen the topic photofunctional materials for decentralized solar cell. As everybody aware of that everybody running behind that energy, electricity, because without electricity we cannot survive in this modern era. Why? Because you just to look at this, you want to use this mobile phone, you need some power backup. So many people you can see that they will have that power bank, so they use it to charge for that mobile. So likewise, many houses you can see that inverter and the UPS, many things you can see. Why? Because they want to conserve the energy and use it whenever it's having the shortage. So that's why. But normally the energy is produced from fossil fuel. So but that fossil fuels is going to be exhaust soon. So for that alternative renewable energy source is that solar cell. So from the solar cell you can generate electricity, but you want to develop an efficient system, you need a excellent component that have that excellent capability of light harvesting property. For that, we are choosing that functional material that have that photoresponsive functional property. So that's why we call it as a photofunctional material. So in this lecture, I'm just going to talk about the importance of energy and the methods for energy conversion, and what are the ways you can harvest that solar energy, and specifically the materials used for Dyson Ray solar cell, operating principle, fabrication method, and some of the recent progress happen in my lab. That also I will discuss at the tail end. So with this small introduction, let me move to the lecture. So you can just look at this slide. So this is the surveys taken by the Rice University student from USA. So they have listed top 10 problem we are going to face in another 50 years. Is my slides are moving?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, then I will proceed. Okay, so they have listed out top 10 problems. So among these, the energy get first priority. Also here you can see that the environment and the disease both also highlighted with red color. Why? Because as already mentioned that without energy, energy in terms of fuel or by electricity. So without this, it's not possible to imagine that our survival. So that's why the energy get to first priority. So normally the energy can be produced by burning the coal, oil, or petrol, whatever it may be. So that will emit the carbon dioxide that pollute the environment. So that's why it is another problem. So that affect the environment, then that leads to emission of greenhouse gas, that is CO2. That leads to the climate change, then that will harmful to the human being. As a result, what happened, that disease, several diseases are happen for the human beings, then you have to spend to cure the disease, as a, that leads to poverty. So likewise, this energy is key for other problem. So it will create, especially the terrorism and the war. You know, the Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda as well as other the terrorist group. Why? Because the America made the labeling for the Arabic country people as a terrorist. Why? Because they want to grab the oil, gas, everything from the Arabic countries. So the Arabic countries are enriched with petroleum, gas, and everything. So for that, they label as a terrorism, and they are doing the war between the Arabic country to grab the oil and gas. So here the main thing, the energy. If you sort out the energy, then you can easily save the environment. You can escape from the several diseases. Then you can save your money. Also, you can avoid the terrorism and the war and everything. Okay, so that's why the energy get high priority. So when that energy demand is happen after Second World War, all the countries they want to develop their own socio-economical growth. So for that they have established several industries. Want to make that your own production method and other things. So for that they feed more amount of fuels to produce energy. So that time, while the industrial revolution happened, that time the energy demand is slowly started. Then later you just look at this upgradation of life. I was in the kid, I used to travel in the bull cart because my grandfather have to bull then have that cart. So whenever we want to go some other city, so we will prepare some food, then we will travel over the night. I remember that. So likewise, I was in some 10 years, 15 years old. I have one bicycle in my home, so that will be accessed by my father, my grandfather, as well as myself. But now, if you look at the every house, minimum you can see two wheeler. Okay, two bike, minimum two bike. For example, gents have some sports bike, whatever it may be. The ladies have scooty. So likewise, you even one family two bike. So that means you have to feed the fuel for the both the bike. So that also one reason, that is upgradation of life. Then the modernization. Normally, when I study in the school, my teachers used to teach by chalk and talk method. Okay, but now you people are having the smart classroom, air conditioned room. So this kind of modernization results increasing the energy demand. So now you just look at this, as already mentioned, that the energies are produced through the fossil fuel. So you just look at this graph with respect to different timeline. So the graph is represent that demand of energy with respect to different timeline. This one, the energy production capability by using petroleum and natural gas. So we are standing here, especially in 2020. So we are standing here. There is a gap started here with respect to time. The gap will be increased. So this is the capacity of the energy production through the fossil fuel. To fill this gap, you have to find alternative energy sources. Okay, so that should be a renewable, greener method. So that is more essential. Okay. So normally the energy can be produced from different sources, two different sources. That is conventional, non-renewable energy source, then the clean and renewable energy source. The conventional non-renewable energy source is nothing but coal, nuclear power, oil, gas. If you look at this coal, oil, gas, while you are producing the energy, it will emit a lot of carbon dioxide that pollute the environment. As a result, what will happen? It makes the greenhouse effect. It is carcinogenic to human beings. Okay. Likewise, if you look at this nuclear power plant, if any accident happen, another 100 years that radiation will be surrounded the place. Another 100 or 200 years, there is no choice for that life survival around the accident happened place. Okay, so for that we have to switch over to that renewable energy source. So the renewable energy source is, I have given few examples, especially water turbine, wind turbine, photovoltaics. So the water turbine and wind turbine, wherever you have that water flow, there you can install it. So if you have the water source, there you can install it. If you have that wind turbine, where that wind flow is good, there you can install. Especially if your people are traveling to that near Pollachi, Udumalpet, or Nagarkoil, Kanyakumari, Thuthukudi, this kind of area, if you go, then you can see lot of windmills. Why? Because their wind flow is good. So there they are able to produce that electricity in greener way by using the renewable source. Likewise, the water turbine also, it produces energy through this renewable energy sources. But the problem, you are producing electricity at Kanyakumari. I am sitting in Karaikudi. I need electricity. How I can get that electricity? So you have to transport the electricity through the power grid. Okay. So that power grid, that means it makes more expensive. For example, the production cost is cheaper than the transportation cost. If you add together, as a consumer, I will get that electricity by the addition of production as well as transportation cost together. That will be more expensive than the conventional energy sources. But if you look at this photovoltaics, if you see the sunlight is available everywhere. You just put one solar panel outside, wherever you need, you can produce electricity. What is your record? So you can produce wherever you need the electricity. You can produce easily. Okay. So you just look at this, the sun have the huge amount of energy. Among this, the solar energy is available on the landscape. That is you just ignore the sea surface, you just look at the landscape, that will be equal to 1000 megawatt of energy. But we are consuming only 13 megawatt of energy through the different process like photovoltaics, so desalination process, solar heating, solar cooking. So in different form we are utilizing only 13 megawatt of energy. If you utilize that 1000 megawatt of energy, it will be equal to that 350 nuclear power plant. Then we can meet our energy demand and we can reserve the energy for the future. Okay. So that's why the solar energy is most promising than the other energy sources. You just look at this. This is the solar spectrum. So in this solar spectrum, it has a 5% of UV light, 46% of visible light, 49% of IR radiation. Okay, based on utilization of this solar energy spectrum, the application and the harvesting property is totally different. Especially if you use that 5% of UV light, then you can use it for that conversion of solar energy into electricity through the solar cell. So far the 22% maximum efficiency commercially available with the silicon solar panel. Okay, so if you utilize this UV light, you can harvest that solar energy to electricity. Okay, the likewise if you use that IR radiation, you can use it for you can convert solar energy into thermal energy. So that will be used for several domestic applications, especially if you are going outside if you are exposed to that sunlight, you feel very hot. Why? Because the sunlight have that IR radiation. So that IR radiation, it produces the heat. So that heat energy is used for that solar water heater, solar drying, solar cooking, solar distillation. So many domestic applications it will be possible with this utilization of IR radiation. The last one is visible light. The visible light that will absorb the incident photon, then it will be converted to chemical energy. That means the solar energy is transferred as a chemical energy. The typical example is that the artificial photosynthesis. Especially if you are taking a water, you add some catalyst and expose to the sunlight, the water will get break into hydrogen and oxygen. So what we have discussed yesterday, that the hydrogen production, so that will be working based on this visible light absorption property. Then the carcinogenic carbon dioxide, that can be converted into value added product. So that is, we call it as artificial photosynthesis. So here you can convert to methane, methanol, formic acid. So many value added product also possible. Likewise, you can convert molecular nitrogen into ammonia. So that is also a promising strategy to improve that the economical growth. So likewise, based on the utilization of solar spectrum, the application is totally different. Especially if you utilize UV light, you can produce electricity. Suppose if you utilize the thermal energy, you heat IR radiation, you can produce thermal energy. Suppose if you utilize visible light, you can store the solar energy into chemical bonds. Okay, so that's what the solar energy conversion. Especially, what is the key idea behind this solar energy conversion? So if you look at that plant, that is gifted by God. Normally the photosynthesis process is gifted by God. The idea is created by God. If you look at that plant, what the plant will do it, that will absorb the water from the ground. Then it will absorb the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. In the presence of sunlight, it will undergo photosynthesis process and produce starch or carbohydrate, whatever it may be. Then finally it releases water and oxygen as a byproduct. So that's why we, because of release of this water and oxygen, so we planting the tree. Especially just look at this. This is the carbon dioxide. So the carbon are stored as a sugar. That is in chemical bonds. Then finally it releases that greener product is the oxygen and water. So water is taken from ground and released as a vapor. Okay, so this is the key idea behind this solar energy conversion. But exponentially, in 180 years ago, there is a scientist named called Edmund Becquerel. So he just did that experiment by taking a plate like a metal halide plate or a metal plate that will be connected through the circuit. Then he dip this electrode into the solution. That solution will be either acid or neutral or basic, whatever it may be. So he just dip into the solution. Finally, he just shine the light over the surface of this metal halide. Then he found that there is a electricity flow through the circuit. Okay, so this is the first invention happened by experimentally in the area of solar energy conversion. So that will happen 182 years ago. So this is the first report. After that, there is no progress in that solar energy conversion area. So the people, they have recognized that the solar energy conversion is mainly due to that sorry sorry for the interruption. This is mainly due to that the chlorophyll, because this chlorophyll is responsible for the photosynthesis. So they have designed the molecule like chlorophyll. Then they have used it for light harvesting assembly. They found that there is some improvement. After that, they have designed the molecule like a phthalocyanine, porphyrin, Evans blue, eosin yellow. So such a kind of dye molecules they have designed and utilized in that light harvesting assembly. They have achieved somewhat improved performance, but it's not up to the mark. Once the concept material science or nanotechnology that is introduced, then the people just switch over from molecules to material. Then this material like metal oxide, carbon nanotube, graphene, metal oxide perovskite, graphitic carbon nitride, metal organic framework. So they have used this kind of photofunctional materials in the light harvesting assembly. They have achieved benchmark efficiency in the solar energy conversion. So during this materials dominated day, the three scientists, especially the Akira Fujishima, he is the Japanese scientist who invented that Honda Fujishima photoelectrochemical cell, what we have yesterday discussed in detail. So that is developed by him. So this Honda Fujishima cell that will having that one anode and cathode. The anode is consist of semiconductor metal oxide and the cathode is the platinum, and both the electrodes are separated through the proton exchange membrane. Then these two electrodes are connected through the circuit. Upon illumination of light, this semiconductor will undergo charge separation and it produces that oxygen here, and the protons are moved towards proton exchange membrane and accept the electron here. Then it produces molecular hydrogen. So both will be collected through the separate burette. Okay, so this is the Honda Fujishima cell. After that, the Switzerland scientist Michael Gratzel, he introduced the concept of dye-sensitized solar cell. Okay, this dye-sensitized solar cell is nothing but actually this titanium dioxide that will attach with the photosensitizer, that is a dye molecule. Then it forms the device. Okay, so this device is called the dye-sensitized solar cell. So here this dye molecule will undergo sensitization process. Finally, it injects the electron. That injected electron will collected as a electricity. Then similarly, the PV Kamath, the Indian who is living in USA, he introduced the concept of quantum dot solar cell. So in this quantum dot solar cell, he just replaced the sensitizer, the dye molecule with the quantum dot. Then he introduced the concept of quantum dot solar cells. So among the other than this perovskite solar cell, organic solar cell, thin film solar cell, silicon solar cell, so many that solar energy conversion devices are available. But I just want to, due to the space limitation, I have put only few examples. Among the various light harvesting assembly, our interest is the dye-sensitized solar cell. Why? Because this dye-sensitized solar cell that have several merit over the other energy conversion device, especially it possesses a high efficiency. Okay, then the durability. For example, you want to buy some solar cell, that have the lifetime of 2 years, then you have to invest again and again. Suppose you are buying a solar cell that has that lifetime 10 years, then you no need to invest again and again. So that means it will be more cheaper in terms of long-term stability and durability. Then new structure, for example, if you look at that street pole, street light that is powered by a solar panel, you can see that at the top, you can see that there is a solar panel. At the bottom, you can see a big box. So that big box have that lead acid battery. Okay, so the water, the electricity is produced in that solar panel, that will be stored in battery in the daytime, and then that stored energy that will be used to power the light in night time. Okay, so this is the methodology for energy conversion and storage. But if you look at this decentralized solar cell, you can prepare a material that will work for a solar cell as well as the battery. Then you can integrate the battery with the solar cell. We call it as a solar battery, or you can integrate this store the energy, then it is called a photocapacitor. So these kind of novel structures, so integrated device and all possible with only this decentralized solar cell. Then also the fabrication cost also is cheaper as compared with perovskite or other technologies. Okay, so the decentralized solar cell is a device which is used to convert the solar energy into electricity. Okay, so far the reported efficiency, the world highest efficiency is 14.3 percentage. Is that the maximum efficiency that is developed by a Japanese group, Kenchi and co-workers. Okay, so even though you can just look at this is the paper appear in Nature in 1991. So here the Michael Gratzel, he reported that the 12% efficiency in the diffused sunlight. After this decentralized solar cell become the promising research subject. Okay, you just look at this is the statistical data. So you can see there is a plenty of solar energy conversion device that proved the track record, especially with the maximum of 44% they have achieved. When we look at this, the emerging photovoltaic device like decentralized solar cell, sorry, decentralized solar cell, perovskite solar cell, organic solar cell. So these solar cells are still they have efficiency of 14%. It's nearly 14%. So that means we have to concentrate on component and the fabrication methodology to improve the performance, so that we can make commercialize these decentralized solar cells. So this is the historical milestones achieved in that decentralized solar cell. Especially initially the Michael Gratzel group from that Switzerland, they have dominated in that area. After that, the Japanese group, they have worked on electrolyte as well as the photosensitizer part. They have hold the world record efficiency of 14%. So this is that milestone achieved with that different configuration of decentralized solar cell. Initially, they have achieved 7% efficiency with this titanium dioxide, platinum, triiodide based redox couple. After that, they have done systematic modification. They have achieved nearly 14% efficiency in 2014. So as on date, 14.3% achieved by that Japanese group. That is the world record efficiency. So this is the structure of decentralized solar cell. So this solar cell have that 5 different components. Especially the first component is that transparent conducting oxide glass plate. That is ITO or FTO. Then that is a semiconductor film. We call it as a photonode. Then the dye molecule, that is we call it as a photosensitizer. Then this is the electrolyte. Okay, so this electrolyte is the redox couple that will involve redox reaction. The final component is the counter electrode. Okay, So you just look at these. These are a typical example for the various component of dye-sensitized solar cell, especially the transparent conducting oxide electrode that will be used as a ITO or FTO or aluminum doped zinc oxide. So that will be normally used. Then the photonode material, you can use any wide band gap semiconductor material like TiO2, zinc oxide, tungsten oxide, tin oxide. You can use anything. Then the photosensitizer, you can use a ruthenium-based metal complex that have that excellent visible light absorption property. Sometimes the ruthenium is costly, so that they use the metal-free organic dyes. Also, you can use fruit extract and vegetable extract, flower extract. That will be used as a natural sensitizer. You can make your own device. Then the electrolyte, you can use that iodine based redox couple. Sometimes if that redox potential may be mismatched with that sensitizer, then you can go with bromine and cobalt bipyridyl metal complex based redox couple. Especially this cobalt bipyridyl complex that it has the world highest efficiency of 14.3%. Then the counter electrode, so the platinum is the most commonly used counter electrode. Other than this, platinum is expensive, so you can use carbon based material, graphite, graphene, carbon nanotube, carbon nitride. So this kind of materials you can use it for counter electrode purpose. Okay, so these all the 5 component is sandwiched together. Finally, it forms that. Finally, it form a dye-sensitized solar cell. Okay, so in that case, I will show you a small video. Before that, I will explain that each component and its requirement. Okay, so the first component is photonode. So for the making photonode, this photonode acts as a matrix to anchor the dye molecule over the electrode. Also, it acts as a charge transport medium for collecting the electrons from the dye molecule. Okay, so it should have that large surface area, high porosity. It should have that excellent stability and good interfacial charge transfer process, so that you can make an efficient device. Likewise, uh, why? Because if you are having this material, so that you can attach the dye molecule over the surface. Okay, if there is no semiconductor, then the dye molecule cannot be deposited over the surface of the electrode. So that will play the important role. So if you have large surface area, it can accommodate more amount of dye molecule. When the dye molecule content increase, then the VOC will be increased. That is, open circuit voltage will be increased. So if it is have that a good light absorption property, it can harvest more amount of incident photon. Okay, it has that excellent interfacial transport property that will suppress the charge recombination process, that will enhance the device performance. The stability of the thin film is the crucial. Why? Because we use it to dip this film into the ethanolic solution of dye molecule. So that time, if the film may not be stable, that photonode material will be leach out. Then you cannot make it a dye-sensitized solar cell. Okay. So now I will show you a small video that will shows how you can fabricate dye-sensitized solar cell and how this dye-sensitized solar cell can be able to produce electricity. So is that video is visible?
Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Okay. As already told, you want to make a dye-sensitized solar cell, you need a transparent conducting oxide glass plate. So I have taken that transparent conducting oxide glass plate. So that is fluorine doped indium tin oxide electrode. Okay, FTO, we call it as a FTO. So I have taken. Then these electrodes normally have that conductivity one side, and another side there is no conductivity. So we have to check that the conducting side. That the conducting side should be faced towards up. Okay, upward spacing. So after that, you have to decide that what is the area, working area you want to fabricate. Accordingly, you leave a space, then the rest of the area you mask with the tape. Then you have the semiconductor material, you make it as a paste, then you apply over the exposed area, then it will subject to the Dr. Blade technique, allowed to that air dried, then it will subject to the calcination process so that it will improve the film stability and create the porosity. Once the photonode is ready, then you have to prepare ethanolic solution of dye molecule. Then you dip this photonode film into the dye solution. Then allowed to soak it for overnight. So what happens once you dip the photonode film into the dye solution? Immediately what happens? These dye molecules are attached over the surface of this metal oxides, that is semiconductor. Especially this dye molecule have that anchoring group, like carboxylate group, thiol group, amine group. So that will make the bonding on the over the surface of this titanium dioxide. You just to look at. So this is this anchoring group, carboxylate group. So that will anchor over the surface. Just allow for overnight, then you take it out the dye adsorbed photon node. Then you take another piece of glass plate. Then you check the conducting side, make it a hole. After that, you spray the counter electrode material over the surface of the conducting side. Then you add a gasket. Then you make a sandwich. Then heat it for some time. That the gasket will melt. Both electrode will stick together, but it will not have direct contact. Then you add the redox couple, that is electrolyte, I minus I3 minus electrolyte over that holes. Once the holes are filled, then you wipe the excess electrolyte, make it seal. Now your dye-sensitized solar cell ready. Now let me see how it is going to be work and how it is going to be produce the electricity. So now it is connected through the electronic gadget. So once you shine the light, so the dye-sensitized solar cell produce electricity. That electricity is used to charge the electronic gadget. Okay. So let me see how that electricity is produced within the dye-sensitized solar cell. So now you just assume that this white color balls are semiconductor, this red color is that dye molecule. So the dye molecule now in ground state. So these white colors are incident photon. So what happened? This dye molecule absorb the incident photon, then it will undergo excitation state from ground state. Okay. As a result, from the excited state, it donate the electrons to the conduction band of titanium dioxide. Then a hole is created in the dye molecule. So now this holes in the dye molecule, that is regenerated by the electrolyte. So the electrolyte carrying the electron from the counter electrode, you just to look at this even. So you donate the electron and fix the holes. Then this electrolyte moving towards counter electrode. This electron again it is donated to that the titanium dioxide conduction band. So that will be collected as electricity. So the holes in the electrolyte, that is regenerated by the counter electrode material. So this is the overall process. If the process is continuous, you are able to produce electricity continuously. So that's all about the working principle of dye-sensitized solar cells. Okay, let me come to the original story. So now we have seen that the fabrication method and the working principle for dye-sensitized solar cell to produce electricity. So many people they are working on decentralized solar cell, but the problem, all the people they cannot succeed. Why? Because you have seen that there is a several process simultaneously happen in the device. For example, dye excitation, the electron injection, then dye regeneration, the whole transport through the electrolyte, then the current collection. So these processes simultaneously happen. So each process that have that different lifetime. So the dye excitation and the electron injection that will happen in nanosecond and picosecond, and there is a probability for that holes in the dye molecule and the electrons in the conduction band of TiO2 that can be recombined in that microsecond to millisecond. Then the regeneration of holes by within this redox couple, so that will happen in the microsecond. There is a possibility for holes in that redox couple as well as conduction band electron that may be recombined in millisecond. But finally the current collection that will be happen in that millisecond to second scale. So that means the electron injection happen in ultra fast, that is 100 picosecond. But here that the same electron collected as electricity, that will happen in seconds to milliseconds. So that means several order in the difference. So that means all the injected electrons cannot be collected as a current. So those injected electrons that will lose the energy through the recombination process. So here the recombination is the main culprit. So that will affect the device performance. So that's why everybody cannot make that efficient device. So to overcome this limitation, several alternative strategies has been adopted. So especially if you look at this. Making nano architecture, introducing light scattering, composite, doping, interfacial engineering, titanium tetrachloride pretreatment. So those kind of strategies they have adopted, especially if you use that instead of nanoparticle, if you use that the low dimensional material, then you can facilitate the electron transfer process. So that also possible. So other than this, doping with this metal and non-metal and making heterojunction with another semiconductor, metal semiconductor system, making composite with carbon-based material like a carbon nanotube, graphene, graphite carbon. So these are all the best efficiency of decentralized solar cell. Among these, our interest is metal semiconductor system. Why? Because it has that several merit over the other system, especially it has that tunable band gap, improved light absorption, rapid interfacial charge transfer process, Fermi level equilibration, less charge recombination, and plasmonic effect. Especially if you look at that, this is semiconductor and metal. Before its contact, the Fermi levels for the semiconductor and metals are totally different. Once you make that combination composite, so the Fermi level of semiconductor will comes down, then the Fermi levels of metal will goes up. Both will undergo equilibration. As a result, the effective interfacial charge transfer process. So that will facilitate the electron transfer process. So in this presentation, I am just going to discuss some of the research obtained in my lab, especially with the semiconductor metal system. So the first system, the titanium dioxide silver based dye-sensitized solar cell. The second system, titanium dioxide gold based dye-sensitized solar cell. The last one is bimetal based dye-sensitized solar cell. So for that, we are adopted simple synthetic protocol. We have taken the titanium dioxide, dispersed in water, then we have added suitable metal precursor. Suppose I want a gold nanoparticle, gold precursor. I want a silver nanoparticle, silver precursor. Suppose I want gold and silver, I will add together. Then subject to the chemical detection, finally we are able to get the nanocomposite material. Suppose you want to do dope and nitrogen doping, sulfur doping, you can choose urea and thiourea as a sources. Okay. Then in this method, we have prepared the nanocomposite material. Then we have done the characterization for that silver TiO2. So for bare material, there is no absorption in the visible region. After addition of silver, the visible light absorption is enhanced. Likewise, we have measured the PL. So the bare TiO2 showed high PL emission due to the high charge recombination process. After addition of silver, the intensity get quenched. That means efficient interfacial charge transfer and recombination is prevented. Then we have done the morphological studies. So here this is the bare TiO2 TEM image, and this is TiO2 silver TEM image. So here you can see the smaller particles that are due to the silver nanoparticle over the TiO2. So this is the physical appearance of TiO2 silver with a different weight percentage of silver. Then we have done mapping also to confirm the presence of titanium and oxygen, the silver present in the nanocomposite material. Also, we have measured the XPS to confirm the elemental state of this silver. So it is found that the silver in the metallic state, not in the ionic form, Ag plus form. Then we have used this TiO2 silver in that dye-sensitized solar cell. While we are using bare TiO2, the photogram density will be somewhat 6.5 milliampere per centimeter square. After adding the silver, the photogram density is significantly enhanced and reached the maximum. So this is the photovoltaic parameters obtained from the previous IV curve. So here, while we are using the TiO2, we have achieved 2.5% efficiency. At the optimized condition, with that 2.5% of silver in the TiO2, that shows 4.86% of solar energy conversion efficiency. So while they are increasing the concentration, the silver may be form freestanding nanoparticle, and it will readily undergo photocorrosion. So due to that, beyond that 2.5, if we increase the silver, the efficiency is get decreased. Then we have developed another system is gold TiO2. So here also, if you use TiO2, there is no absorption in the visible region. After adding the gold, they significantly increase the absorption in the visible region. Then the PL spectra also clearly confirm that addition of gold nanoparticles suppress the charge recombination process. Then we have done the morphological studies and mapping also to prove that the presence of gold nanoparticle over the TiO2. So that will be confirmed with the FESM, TEM, and mapping. Then the XPS analysis also clearly confirmed that gold in the metallic form, not in the ionic state. Then we have used that gold and TiO2. Here we have observed the further enhancement in the photocurrent density is observed as compared with the silver. So that means we are able to achieve 18 milliampere per centimeter square photocurrent density with that the power conversion efficiency of 5.61. If we go beyond that weight percentage, so the gold will undergo oxidation as well as it will shield the incident photon. So those factors that will affect the further increase in the performance. Then the final system, we have used the gold and silver together over the TiO2. The visible light absorption maximum also changed based on the composition of gold and silver present in the composite. Further addition of gold and silver over the TiO2 suppress the charge recombination process and enhance the electron transport property. So this is the physical appearance of the material. Then the mapping also clearly confirmed that the existence of titanium, oxygen, gold, and silver in the nanocomposite material. The morphological studies also clearly confirms that the presence of gold and silver over the TiO2. The XPS also confirmed that the gold and the silver present as a metallic state, not in the ionic form. Then the device with this bimetallic modified TiO2 that showed further enhancement in the photocurrent density as compared with the previous system. So in that case, we have achieved 30 milliampere per centimeter square the power density, the substitute current density, photocurrent density. Nearly we have achieved 10% of power conversion efficiency. So this is the one of the best system as compared with the already published works done by other group. So ours is fabrication method is very simple and the material synthesis is also very simple, but we are able to achieve the efficiency 9.5%. That is nearly 10%. So this is overall comparison of various system we have studied in the metal semiconductor system. So initially we have started with the 2.5% with the TiO2. Once we introduce silver, that will be get double, and after adding gold, it become further improved, and we have achieved the maximum efficiency of 9.54. So this is the roadmap. We have achieved 10% efficiency. So we have started with the TiO2 with the efficiency of 2.57, and we have ended with that nearly 10% with this bimetallic system. Meanwhile, we are cross over that silver, gold doping with nitrogen and sulfur. So this is my student demonstrating her skill with the public during our open day, CSR open day. So for that, she make that exhibition to demonstrate that the solar cell working principle and fabrication everything. So this is some news clip about our research group. So these are the reference what I have discussed in this presentation. So you want to learn more about the fundamental about solar energy conversion, you can refer this book. We have given the detailed description about the working principle and the importance of the energy and the various solar energy conversion method. So in this book, this will provide information about the material perspective of solar energy device. So today take home message. So we just want to ignore this fossil fuel based energy source. Then we have to switch over to the solar based energy system. So this is the take home message. Finally, I would like to thank my professor for providing immense knowledge in the area of solar energy conversion. So for that I want to remember at present. So finally, thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's time for discussion. Participants can ask questions if they have any.
Student, you can ask any basic questions also. I'm happy to answer.
So since there are no more questions, sir, we shall start the valedictory function. Please join us for the valediction.
Okay, madam. Okay. What time? 3:30. Okay.
Now, sir, we will have now.
Now. Okay, ma'am. Okay, I will stay here.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Nandana?
Okay, ma'am. So here we are concluding the 2 days Science Academics virtual lecture workshop on recent advances in chemical science. Gratitude is an exquisite form of courtesy. I request Dr. A. Amudavali ma'am to offer the vote of thanks. Ma'am, please.
Respected dignitaries, faculty members, and students, I express my sincere gratitude to our beloved President, Dr. M. Arachami sir, for his encouragement and support. I express my hearty thanks to our Secretary, Dr. C. A. Vasigi Madam, for the constant support and guidance she has extended to all of us for this program. I thank our principal, Dr. M. Lakshmanasamy sir, for the constant motivation and guidance. I express my gratitude to Dr. S. R. Madan Shankar sir, Dean Academics, for his help and valuable advice. I am thankful to the Science Academies for the financial support rendered for conducting such a grand workshop. I greatly thankful to the convener of the workshop, Dr. V. Subramanian, Chief Scientist, Central Leather Research Institute, Chennai, for investing his time and guidance. I am grateful to Dr. A. Pandikumar, Scientist, CSIR, Central Electrochemical Research Institute, Karaikudi, for delivering a wonderful lecture. Thank you, sir. Further, I thank Professor Rishi N.N. Nambudiri, Department of Chemistry, IIT Bombay, Mumbai, Dr. P. Venkatakrishnan, Associate Professor, Department of Chemistry, IIT Madras, and Professor Rajadurai Chandrasekhar, School of Chemistry, University of Hyderabad, for their presence and involvement towards this two-day virtual lecture workshop. I take this opportunity to extend my thanks to the participants for their support and cooperation. I express my gratitude to our head of the department, Dr. K. Kalpana Devi ma'am, for having arranged a two-day lecture workshop on recent advances in chemical sciences. Thank you, ma'am. I record my sincere thanks to my colleagues and my dear students for their cooperation. Thank you for joining with us. Thank you.
Participants can give their feedbacks about the lecture workshop. The feedback link is posted in the chat box. Participants, please fill the form and submit so that you will get your certificate. So thank you for joining us. Sir,
Yes, ma'am.
so thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
We shall leave, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.